Hey, this is Silas here for Rantathon. I'm going to do a video about the ongoing Google controversy with the memo that was released about it was by James Damore. He released a memo talking about how he thought the current hiring policies within Google, a big tech company, were actually harming diversity and inclusion in the company. I will eventually read the actual memo, the 10-page memo, but I just want to discuss how I think this is a positive thing. I think it's positive that Google has fired him for this. I think it's positive that they're putting this information out there. And as I see in this image here, this is bait. This actual activity is bait because think about what happens in the world. The information that's being released in general is bait. It's being put out there to attract certain people. Why are these policies out there? Why is it a situation where he's been fired? Somebody said, oh, he should sue. I think, no, he probably has no leg to stand on for suing. He shouldn't sue them. I mean, companies, first of all, it's a private company. They should be allowed to hire and fire people for whatever reason they want. Second, I think he probably actually did violate some kind of company policy like it was said. Somebody said, oh, the company said the CEO or whoever should have just said that, look, he didn't actually violate any state laws in the state that we hired him, so we're just going to keep him in. And he probably didn't. There's probably no state laws on the book saying you can't actually write a manifesto about the company. But the fact that in the fact that it's being called a manifesto kind of makes it like it's kind of like Communist Manifesto, some negative type of thing. But even the fact that the environment existed for him to write this shows that the kind of people running the company already were in a situation where they wouldn't follow something so, I don't want to say rational, but just so, because there's a rationale that they're following, but something so basic or something like, okay, let's just revert to the state laws instead of actually having this, instead of catering more to the people within the company that may be offended. And this is a self-selecting group of people who are offended by material like this. Instead of having a company that's directed towards actual competition, actual merit, and just building tech products and building products, we're focused more on creating this feel-good, safe space for people to share the right kind of thoughts and the right kind of information and the right kind of ideas that don't necessarily harm people or apparently people take offense to. Because I don't want to say just harm people, just make it uncomfortable, because they are conservative-minded people. They are people who don't necessarily agree with these social justice warrior type, or social justice whiner, which I prefer to say, those type of policies. They don't agree with this ideology. They don't agree with some of these things. They don't agree that the wage gap is as major of a thing. But anyway, getting into other topics. So let's focus on this idea that this is bait. Why it's good for companies to talk about what they're doing so they can attract people who agree with them. Because I do think the way people think on political, the way people think about political things, about their ideologies, it's not alien. It's not something that they can, I think, compartmentalize and say, this is my politics here and the way I approach things in the office are here. I think the way people will work, the way people will approach their business, their day-to-day, approach challenges, approach problems, approach stress, does show up in their environment, in their political ideologies. If somebody wants a safe space from words, then if there's a deadline coming up, they won't be able to achieve that deadline as much as somebody who can take that word, who can take that stress from the different words from an opposing point of view and say, okay, let me try to figure out how to at least understand what that person is coming from, but at least not let that completely destroy me or completely affect the way I think. So I think that's a different kind of person, and I personally would rather that second person who's able to deal with these stress and work through these things. So a good example for another company that's doing this, where some people are worried, like, okay, if Google is doing this, they control majority of the internet searches in the Western world. If a company like Facebook, where so many people get their news from, is doing similar things, then that's another problem. And here you can see with Sheryl Sandberg, Marry the Nerds, and The Good Guys. So this is from Business Insider. I found this, I clicked to this link, which showing again different things happen for different reasons. Somebody thought, okay, look, from what she's saying here, this is another thing of somebody saying women should just date as many people and then eventually when they get older, settle down with that good guy. Now, I'll read through this and you can see what you think from it. So 4 years ago, Facebook's chief operating officer, Sheryl Sandberg, wrote a groundbreaking book calling for women to lean into their careers. In a recent interview, she suggested that women should be doing the same with their relationships. When a Financial Times reporter asked Sandberg what she should be looking for in a relationship, the executive had a brilliant response. The guys who want an equal relationship, she said. Guys who want to support your career, you have a great career. Pressed by the reporter, who was eager to know how to find these men who Sandberg called the good guys, the exec offered a simple but effective nugget of wisdom. Ask them. That's right, when you go on a date, be upfront and ask the person if he's one of those good guys who wants an equal relationship and will support you in your career. While this might seem like too serious a question to ask on a casual first date, Sandberg recommended asking early and not being afraid of offending. If they're going to be offended by the answer, you don't want to date them anyways. Here's a more in-depth excerpt of the interview. You can date whoever you want, but you should marry the nerds and the good guys, she advised. You date the bad guys? You date to the bad guys, I ask? A little bit. I tell her I'm 30 and unmarried. Who should I be looking for? The guys who want an equal relationship. Guys who want to support your career? You have a great career, she said. Embracing the idea of Sandberg as an agony aunt, I ask how you tell who the good guys are. You ask and you ask early, and you're not afraid of offending. If you're going to be offended by the answer, you don't want to date them anyway. Now, at first glance, reading this article, it's like, okay, why did she just repeat everything twice? And then I'm thinking, okay, wait, is this more bait? Is this for collecting the people? And then you click to read the full Financial Times interview, and you click that and you see that it leads you to Financial Times subscription thing, which is just showing that different companies are changing the way that they have to bait people in. Everything is bait. Everything is, let's put this out there and sell this to somebody. It's, let me put these ideas out there. Let me see who's going to be attracted by this. Right now they put that out there. It's clickbait. You click the story. There's not much of the story in there. Some people are reading this and thinking, okay, why are they repeating it? Why are they repeating this material twice? And then they think, okay, let me go see what the rest of it is. And I click there. And then you end up, okay, maybe I have to subscribe to actually get it. And then now if you like what was here, if you really want to do this, then you subscribe and you get the information. But it attracts a certain kind of person. Now, the other link here goes to read more Sandberg's opinion. Original article from the Insider. So read the original article on the Insider. Click that. Does it take you to the original article? Why you should be afraid of somebody who you think is out of your league. This is not the article that you're looking for. These are not the droids that you're looking for. Anyway, you click on this, now it's an entirely different thing. It doesn't take you to the actual article, but now it gives you more bait. It's more bait to come into the Insider and read more of these things. So not everything that's out there is for its main purpose. And going back to this thing, what is the main purpose of dating? What is the main purpose of it? And Sheryl Sandberg is saying the same thing. She's saying, okay, the main purpose of getting a relationship is to somebody who's supporting you. But then I'm thinking, what is the main purpose of a relationship? What is the main purpose of dating? To me, the main purpose of dating is to find somebody you're going to marry. What's the main purpose of marriage? For me, the main purpose of marriage is to have children. Now, in a situation where we have a sexually dimorphous species, women are more predisposed. They're built for it. They're built for caring for the child. They carry the child. They gestate the child for the 9 months. Then after, for the advisable 1 year and 8 months to 2 years, advised for actual breastfeeding, for bonding with the child. This is advised. And when you're doing that, if you have a full-time career, you're not going to be as effective as that. So in general, it makes sense for people to be out there, for the male to be out there working, getting the resources, and for the female to be at home with the children. This is how things have worked since the beginning of human history, since we've been a sexually dimorphous species. That's not too... You would think that that's not too too offensive to say. You'd think that's not too much of an issue to say, but clearly it is, because that manifesto was talking about, this so-called manifesto from Google was talking about this. It was saying that, look, this is a situation where women and men have different physical bodies. We're different beings. That's why there's women and men. That's why we're not just the same creature, the same being, is because we make different decisions. We have different physical bodies in general, on average. And when it comes to life goals, it's a different purpose. So now she's saying, get this dating situation, focus on dating for somebody who wants to support your career. Now, if you don't want to have kids, I think, yes, more power to you. If you actually come to the point where you don't want to have children, then yes, go into your 30s without finding somebody, focus on your occupation. And when you find women that do this, that decide to focus on their jobs and decide to not have kids, they make around the same as their male counterparts in the jobs that don't necessarily require any outright physical strength, because now there's a difference in physical strength in that situation. Whereas, like I'm saying, for example, if you have an NBA player that's 25, or like an NBA player that's 30 and a WNBA player that's 30, both haven't had kids, both haven't had a family, the NBA player will be making a lot more because he's working to a much higher level. But then you can have the similar thing if you have a runway model who's in her 30s, like very successful in that field, and you have a male model in their 30s very successful in that field. The runway model will be making a lot more. The female one will be making a lot more than the male. But that's due to just different kind of agreements and appreciations and needs and values by society of those fields. So just what is the purpose of this? What am I trying to get at? I'm trying to say that companies like this need to, I think it's a positive thing that companies like this, companies like Google, are out there talking about what is actually their hiring policy. I want them to attract as many people that do agree with this kind of lean-in type of mentality, that do agree, like, yes, as a woman, I need to find males that are more supportive of my job versus my family. Because I think if you have that kind of family, it might affect the way you work. It might affect your personality, your personal happiness and your joy. And then it gets to a point where you see, does a company full of people who are triggered by the reality that male and females have different bodies and make different decisions, having a company staffed by people like that, does that change how that company's products actually end up? If you're hiring on those lines instead of hiring to create tech, if you're trying to marry somebody for reasons that aren't, I think, the main reasons for marriage, which is children, does that result in a higher divorce rate? Does that result in a higher failure rate for that institution? And I think yes. And I think that's part of the reason people are trying to redefine what happens in marriage. They get into marriage and they say this is uncomfortable. We're so used to just the general way we see marriage because it's developed on other premises. It's developed with the accepted premise that the main purpose for this is to have kids. If you have a tech company and the main purpose for the tech company is to create the best kind of tech, you're supposed to just hire the best kind of engineers, regardless of their race, regardless of their gender. And once you start going away from that, the failure rate of your products will raise. Just like once you start going away from the purpose of raising children being the main thing in your marriage, that's going to drop as well. You know, I would love for more women to ask this, to go out there and say, are you focused on the career? Do you want to help me raise my career? Because it helps people. I want people's profiles, dating profiles, to be like, look, my career is the first thing. And then have other people say, look, I'm focused on having a family. I'm focused on trying the best way to be a mother, to have children. And then see which ones are going to be more successful. Which relationships are going to be more successful? The people who are out there asking early in the conversation, what do you want to do to have children? How do you want to organize that? Let's work to have children instead of work so we can make our jobs our children. I think those people will be more successful. Just like companies should come out and say, look, my main purpose for this company, or a very high thing on my company, is diversity, is to have two genders, for sure, yeah, the two genders, is to have an equal amount of the two genders there, is to have an equal representation of races there. Let somebody have that be known that this is a kind of company, and then you have the best coders come and say, okay, would I rather sign up for a company that says, we're going to focus on merit only, we're going to focus on creating the best products and hiring the best people to do that, regardless of their sex, regardless of their gender? That's not a factor. Let people decide, should we go to this or should we go to that? And as I said, I think there's always going to be 55% of the coders or the designers don't really care. 55% of the people like, okay, I'm just getting a paycheck, I'm just checking in. 15% are going to be always for certain policies. 15% are always going to be against certain policies. There's going to be a 15% very clutch that they need. I think if they will benefit from somebody being very clear, they'll benefit from somebody coming out and saying, look, I am in this relationship for my career. Then that person will decide, okay, I'm going to go to this way. If this is what you want, I'm going to avoid this. Someone will say, I am in this company only to hire off of merit. I'm not, you're never going to see any diversity hiring in here. And someone will be like, yes, that's what the kind of company I want, and that's what they're going to go to. So I hope that made some sense. I'm going to actually read the entire Google document. I'll have a link to that in the low bar if you want to read through that. And there's also going to be a link to Ben Shapiro breaking down in this article about on the Daily Wire about the different things that are not in this. See, women are biologically unfit for tech. CNN is running a segment of that. That hasn't been said in the document. Diversity is bad. That hasn't been said in the document. Damore opens up the memo stating, I value diversity and inclusion. Sexism doesn't exist. The memo and the author explicitly dismissed this notion as well. Damore writes that he's not denying that sexism exists. And the memo promotes violence. This is the most extreme claim made by leftists on the memo. It's a lie. In fact, one of the rationales behind the memo was to prevent PC-led, politically correct-led violence that has infected college campuses. So you can check those links in the low bar. And till next video, I'll talk to you later. Hope it made some sense. I know I was kind of rambling around the place, trying to get these ideas together, but it's a developing story, and let me know your thoughts on it. Until next video, goodbye.